computer. Hi, and welcome to Stimming and Stilettos with Dr. Tasha. Y'all, I have a new graduate. I'm super excited. I'm super excited. I am super excited to just be talking to someone who is new, who's brand new, who is just a new body in STEM. I can't even tell you. So, as you guys know, I am a mechanical engineer by trade. I kind of got into STEM not in the best way. I don't know if you know my story. So I'll just give you a brief synopsis. So my guest today her name is Paris. I know her mom. And we used to work together in just sort of like the most random of places. I did STEM for the Girl Scouts in my past life. And so it was a humbling experience, and I'm really grateful for it. But we met there and we became friends, and I'm really glad we did. And her daughter is going to tell us her STEM story in a minute, but so I wanted to tell her my STEM story so she can understand sort of how we came to be in this proximity. So my dad was a mechanic, and I learned how to work with my hands really young. And I was in a program where they asked us what we wanted to be when we grew up, and I didn't know. So they gave us this long list of all of these STEM careers, and they were all engineering careers: chemical engineer, electrical engineer, industrial engineer, electrical engineer, mechanical engineer. That was the only one that I remotely knew anything about because my dad was a mechanic. That's how I chose my college major. That was it. That was not the best way to choose that was not the best way to choose your college major. But that's how I chose mine, because my dad was a mechanic, and I was like, I think I know how to do that, because my dad is a mechanic, and I think I know how to do that. And I lucked out because it was similar, right? I mean, I knew how to work with my hands. I knew how to put things together. I was that kid who knew how I would break up my toys and learn how to put them back together. So I was good at that. And then I got into the classes, and I would literally go home and say, Dad, they want me to put this thing together. And my dad would help me. And that was that. So I was able to persevere and get through it, because I had a dad who was really good and and my dad was a math genius. My dad could look at a problem and figure out how to solve it. And I took after him because I wouldn't say math was easy to me, but I could figure out how to solve stuff. And so it just became like a thing. So I don't know. And I was like, I was meant to be in STEM. And so your mom just talked so glowingly about you even back then when we worked together. So I'm really honored that you chose to be on the show today, that you picked me to come on and talk about your experience. And so, Paris, tell us your STEM story.
Of course. So, hi everyone. My name's Paris. I recently graduated from Belmont University in Nashville, Tennessee, with my Bachelor of Science in Biochemistry and Molecular Biology. Yeah, my STEM story kind of started all the way back in 5th grade. There was this program kind of for gifted students, they called it. It was this kind of side program that you could do in the elementary school with like another teacher and do extra math problems, extra science problems, things like that. There was one particular unit in that kind of side class where we learned about shark anatomy. We learned about the function of some of those parts of the shark. And then at the end of the unit, we actually got to dissect a shark in 5th grade,
Wow.
which is, looking back, it's kind of like, why would you let a bunch of 10-year-olds dissect a shark? But it's fine. We don't have to worry about the details. But I dissected that shark with like 2 or 3 other classmates, and it was just very eye-opening. I was like, you know, this stuff that's in front of me, I can see what's making this shark alive, or when it was alive, I could see the parts that helped it to function. I can see the heart, I can see the stomach, I can see what's in the stomach, I can see all of these things. And I found that to be very, very interesting. Now, moving forward after that class, I didn't realize how impactful that was to me until later on when I went into seventh grade. And in seventh grade, I had a life science class where we did a microscopy lesson. So we looked at our own cheek cells under the microscope. And I kind of had that experience again, where I was like, wow, I'm looking at something that is fundamentally necessary for living beings to live. Like I was looking at my own cheek cells, like these cells make up my cheek, that make up my face, that make up my body, that do these things, that have these functions that are really important for me to live. And I found that super exciting. Now, all throughout this time, I had thought that I was going to be an author, weirdly enough. I was always told that, you know, I was a really good writer. I was told
Yeah.
that, you know, I should go and be an author because that was what I was good at. And when I had these experiences, I realized I didn't want to do what other people had been telling me that I should do, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I didn't really connect with being an author. No shade to authors, but I didn't love writing like I loved science. And so it really hit me in seventh grade. I was like, okay, this is the field that I need to go into. I had this experience in fifth grade. I had this experience in seventh grade. This is what I need to do. And so then I moved on and I was in high school and I was set on the science, but I wasn't set on what in science, if that makes sense. So I was doing a lot of research, you know, that was kind of the time where students were being asked, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Like we were in these programs that were
Yeah.
like, here's a list of, kind of similar to your story, here's a list of um, potential professions that you could look into. And so I was looking through that list and I was trying to find something in science, but specifically I didn't know what quite yet. So they gave us a quiz to take and there was like a ranking of different potential professions that would fit best for you.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and so I took that list and then I did my own research outside of class and I was like, okay, I compared the list in my own research. I was like, okay, what makes the most sense? I like what I saw in the shark. I like functional understanding of the body. I like cells. I like small things. I like seeing what makes up humans. So I kind of combined those ideas and then I ended up finding out what pathology was. And so pathology is the study of disease. It's kind of this sub-profession in the healthcare field, a physician position where you're kind of looking under the microscope, seeing different types of cells, seeing different types of cells that are sick, seeing different types of cells that are healthy, and trying to reconcile between those differences and, in the end, giving a diagnosis to a patient. So this to me was like the ultimate combination of all of the things that I had experienced up to that point. It was an opportunity to learn about microscopy. It was an opportunity to understand functionally what's happening in the body and why that's relevant to human disease. And when I was in high school, I started to volunteer and do community service a lot. And so I was really passionate about doing something as a profession that would positively impact other people. And this this profession of pathology was just the ultimate combination of all of those things. So at the end of high school, I thought, okay, I want to go into science. Okay, I want to be a pathologist. Okay, I want to be a doctor. That's what I want to be. Then I went to college and things changed in college and
Yeah.
I dealt with a pandemic in college.
Oh,
So
right. Right.
yeah, yeah. And you know, that passion for microscopy, functional relevance in the human body, that didn't go away. But what was added on top of that was this passion and desire for furthering the scientific understanding of what's going on in the human body for the good of the scientific community. And so I did my first experience of scientific research at Vanderbilt University in my sophomore year. And
Mm.
I had to reconcile with this new passion that I had. I had decided I wanted to get my MD, my doctor of medicine, be a pathologist. I had decided that in high school. Now I have this new passion, another field in STEM, completely different. This idea of biochemistry and structural biology, this idea where there's these proteins in our body that, you know, lead to these functions in the body, and we don't understand all of the proteins in our body yet. We don't understand their functions. We don't understand why, if some proteins aren't functioning properly, those lead to diseases. We don't understand the details of all of that yet. There's
And we
so
still
much
don't,
new.
right?
Right, right. There's so much new information out there that is just waiting to be found out.
Mhm.
And I got super excited about finding out what that was. So now I'm in this path where I finally figured out kind of where I'm at in STEM at the end of my college career. And that is still pathology, still my MD, but it's also PhD, scientific research,
Mhm.
biochemistry, structural biology, protein biochemistry, disease, furthering the understanding of these functional proteins as it pertains to human disease. So they're kind of parallel in the sense that my science will impact my medicine and my medicine will impact my science. So ultimately, I guess this is kind of a segue into what I'm doing now. I am pursuing both my medical degree and my PhD at the University of Utah in the fall so that I can kind of explore both sides of this kind of STEM story where I had this background in understanding and being really excited about organs and microscopy. But I found out in college that I also want to further scientific knowledge for the whole world. As it can pertain to helping people and patients, there's only so much you can do when you give a diagnosis. Sure, we know some things about cancer or different diseases, and that's cool. But what would be better is to be able to say, hey, I have a diagnosis for you, and I have furthering information based off this diagnosis that can help you and other patients in the future. So that's kind of like a brief overview of my STEM story.
Oh my God. Mind blown. Mind blown. But mind blown. That's incredible.
Yeah.
It's that is incredible. Wow. Wow. I don't even know where to start with you. I don't even know where to start with you. Um, I think I have so many questions. I want to ask you about I want to ask you about, was it a pivot or sort of like a maybe a turn? So when the pandemic happened
Mhm,
for you, what made you sort of, what did the pandemic do for you, right?
mhm.
What was it that made you kind of go, let me let me see what I can do here.
Yeah.
While we're in the midst of this pandemic, let me see what's here for me. How can I grow? What can I learn from here? What is this thing we're in the midst of? What can I do?
Yeah. So the pandemic happened the second semester of my freshman year of college. So I never got a full year of normalcy in college.
Mhm.
So that happened before I realized I wanted to get my PhD.
Yes.
So yeah, so the pandemic happened and I was just blindsided. I was ready to go to college. I was ready to have the college experience. I
Mhm.
was ready to be prepared to be a doctor, and
Mhm.
I was very tunnel vision, very focused. Then the pandemic happened and I had to reconsider kind of everything because front healthcare workers were on the front lines, right?
Right,
Nurses, doctors, all of those people were on the face, like they were the face of the pandemic essentially.
right.
So I was sitting at home still doing homework, right? Because school was virtual, but I was sitting at home watching TV, seeing these people just like basically plead with our country, right? Plead with the country. This is a serious issue. We have to take precautions in this pandemic. We have to take it seriously. Here's what you can do to help. And I just saw exhaustion in the faces of these people. And that was disheartening a little bit because I knew these were like my people. These were going to be
Right,
my colleagues, you
right.
know, decades down the line, but still colleagues. And so what was really motivating was I took this microbiology class in my a sophomore year of college, still during the height of the pandemic. And we read this book about the influenza outbreak in the 1900s,
Yeah.
which, if you think about it, there's a lot of parallels between
Yeah.
those two.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So when it comes to mask mandates, parallels. When it comes to the spread, parallels.
Yeah.
When it comes to just social disbelief and kind of hesitancy towards healthcare workers, parallels. And so reading that book, seeing healthcare workers just trying and sometimes failing to convince the public that this was a serious issue and there were things that needed to be done, that kind of just riled me up inside, if that makes sense. Kind of made me passionate. It didn't turn me away from healthcare. Some people have that story where they saw the pandemic and they wanted to do healthcare and they don't anymore, and that's completely valid. But for me, I just knew that this is a field that needs to kind of bridge the gap between healthcare individuals and everyday people. You know, there is a tough, really sad history when it comes to healthcare, a history of mistrust
Right.
between the public and healthcare workers, especially when we talk about communities of color, just the mistreatment and the kind of downright animosities that happen to communities of color at the hands of healthcare workers. Now we need to turn that around, right? So we need to see, what I think is that we need to see healthcare workers that look like us and that know about us and our struggles
Right.
to kind of bridge that gap. So we need to communicate better. We need to have Black doctors and nurses, and we need to have brown doctors and nurses as well. We need to have all kinds of diversity in the healthcare field. So I knew I wanted to contribute to diversify the field, but I also knew I wanted to contribute to bridge that gap that was seemingly there during the pandemic, and I'm sure is still there now. So it was kind of a motivating factor to see all of that on TV and just see the exhaustion and the attempts to convince everyone that this was something serious. And now I want to be a part of that fight, essentially.
Yeah. Love that. And we need you. We need more like you in the field. It's just so disheartening. In a way, just what we see happening. There's I just feel like there's been more and more stories coming out. We've known about them, we've known about the disparity, we've known about the mistreatments before. I think there's just been more and more stories that coming out, and maybe there's been more and more people who've been willing to speak up about them, which I guess are a good thing. In a sense, they're a good thing. It's just more, I get in my mind, I'm like, oh gosh, we need more people who are going into the field, who are willing to do this work, who are um, who are just willing to just get in there, do this work, be um, be a soldier. But I don't mean it in a sense of just sort of like marching in there, but like really be passionate about this work, right? Because we need people like that, right? Not just people who be like, well, somebody's got to do it. It's like, no, people who are just like, these are my people, this is my field, this is my work. And I feel like that's you. The way in which you talk about it, it's just like it's in you to do, and that's what we need. There's a good one of my good girlfriends is a doctor, and remind me when we get off here to really put you guys in touch. I really feel like she would be a really good mentor for you. Um, because she works at Grady Hospital
Mm.
here. Man, you and her would just, I think you and her would really hit it off. She would be a good mentor for you. Um, okay, so um, pathology, so MD, PhD.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a lot.
MD, PhD.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a lot. That is a lot. I have utmost respect for it. And actually, I think I know a couple of people who've gone that route, and I understand. You said it so eloquently, like one will inform the other and vice versa. And I get it. I get it. And I admire it. And I can do nothing but tip my hat. Because I think we need more of it. I think there's such a need for both. And I think it's really smart. I think it's really smart and clever, and there's a word that I'm trying to get to in my head. It's like it's just there's a word I'm trying to get to and I can't get to it right now. But I just think that that's what doctoring and like the level of care, that's what we really need, right? You know what I mean? Because if it's not a like a diagnosis, then it's another thing, right? It's like wellness and medical need and wellness all rolled up in one. It's like it's got to be one or the other, right?
Yeah.
It's just there's a there is a I was reading this book this a while back when they're and there's the author was talking about there's more to our health than a diagnosis, right? There's
Hmm.
more to us than what's wrong with us,
Hmm.
right? So, and there's more to like our wellness and all of us than just like the pathology and all of this the things. It's just like there's more to our makeup than just the cells and the things. And that's what I'm trying to get to. And it's like all of the words are jumbled up because I feel like what you're doing is so admirable. And I just like my admiration grows for you by the second. Okay, so you leave in the fall. What's your plan? Are you planning to just chill out this summer?
Actually, no. So, medical school starts in the fall. Before that, most MD PhD students do what's called a summer rotation, where
Hmm.
they kind of try out a lab
Hmm.
it with the idea in mind that they might return for their PhD.
Okay.
So I will be doing that. So I actually move out to Utah at the end of the month, and I will start my rotation in June.
So, okay, so you're gonna go to Utah. Where in Utah? Salt Lake City? Where are you gonna be? Okay.
Salt Lake City.
Okay. So you're gonna be right in the thick of things in more ways than one. Are you sure you're ready for Salt Lake City?
I think so. I visited only twice, but I visited and I really like it. The people are really nice and the program is really strong. And I know that they're very welcoming. A lot of MD PhD programs welcome out of state students all the time.
Yeah.
And so there has to be a foundation for um not assimilation, but kind of just welcoming them into the space.
Yeah.
um, and so the program director, the coordinator, super nice people, and they're ready and willing to help out in any way they can so that the transition is as easy as possible.
Okay. So what are you looking forward to the most?
Oh, that's hard. That's such a hard question. Um, you know, this is super specific, but I'm really excited about where I'm living. So
Mm,
in college, I had a really great scholarship, amazing scholarship that covered my housing. So all 4 years, I stayed on Belmont's campus, so in a dorm of some sort, whether that be like a community style dorm in freshman year or like an apartment style in senior year. I lived on campus, so
mhm,
I never had to think about like rent or like paying utilities.
mhm.
So now that is not happening. I'm going to be living in a house with housemates. So I will have to think about rent and I will have to think about utilities. And I think this might be naive of me, but I'm really excited about what comes with that. Just being in a new space and taking care of things and like, oh, I have a bill to pay. Let me get to that. It feels a little more real because living on campus is great for like monetary reasons and like not having to pay and not worrying about any of that and everything's like a quick walk. But now I have to think about like, okay, I'm an adult in a house with other adults. Let me think about my commute to medical school now. Like, let me think about when am I going to have time to go to the gym? Because I'm not bringing my car because
Right.
I'm not driving that far. I'm not doing that. Um, so we're flying, and maybe I'll get a car down the road because I'll be there for a while. But for now, I have to think about all the logistics that come with living in a house that's not on campus. So I'm kind of excited
Mhm.
about that.
Okay, so you're excited about adulting.
Yeah. I like I said, I might be a little naive. I might be, ask me again in 3 months. I might be like, this isn't it. I don't want to do this anymore.
It's like, yeah, I don't know what I was thinking, but this is a no.
Yeah, right.
Okay, okay. So opposite question. So what are you looking forward to the least?
Yeah, I mean, the reality is Utah is on the other side of the country,
Mhm.
and my family lives in Georgia. I have extended family in Florida, Texas, a little bit northeast, but mostly on this half of the country.
Mhm.
And it was the farthest option. It was
Yeah,
the farthest choice out of the options that I had. And my parents were struggling with that a little bit, and I was struggling because that was the one con that I could think about in my pros and cons list because I love a spreadsheet. So I made a spreadsheet and I was like, okay, here are the pros, here are the cons. And the con list was very short, and it really boiled down to location, being
yeah,
super far away. Now, Salt Lake City is a Delta hub, so there are Delta flights from Salt Lake to Atlanta, which is a huge airport that I'm used to. So if I need to, I can. It's not like I can't. It's just it's not like I can drive home
yeah.
like I could for college. Like a Nashville to Atlanta or Nashville to where I live at home is a 3.5 hour drive. Not bad. I can get there in an afternoon. I can't say that same thing about medical school, and I don't know how I'm going to adjust to not having that convenience anymore. It was kind of like a safety net, if you will. Like, oh, I want to see my mom. Let me go drive tomorrow, but I can't do that anymore. And so that kind of sucks. I'll have to adjust to that.
Or maybe it's this is part of putting, growing up,
Yeah.
one of those things where you've kind of sort of taken away your crutches in
Mhm.
the sense of like now it's time for me to be a big girl. I can't get to where I need to get to. I can't get in the car and see my mom in 3 hours. I could talk to her on FaceTime, but of course it's not the same. I can't get a mama hug. Uh,
Mhm.
so you know, it'll be different. I mean, I have no doubt that you will be successful in Utah. And you'll find other ways in which you will find other ways, and you'll find a family out there, or you'll find a group of your fellow medical folks. They'll be having similar experiences, and so you guys will bond, and it'll be what you need at the time, because there's nobody else going to have the same experience. They'll be going through the same things, so you guys will bond, and it'll be what you need, hopefully. um, Man, I want you to succeed and know that you have people out here who are rooting for you. um, you may not see us, but we are praying for you every day. We're throwing one up for you, and please know that.
Thank you. Thank you so
Please,
much. I
please
really
know
appreciate it.
that. All right. So one last question. Well, first, if people want to get in contact with you, and if they, if they want to, type out a prayer and send you something, where can they get in contact with you?
Yeah, so my email or my Instagram is best. So my email is just my first name dot my last name, Paris Berrian, Berrian at Gmail. I do check my emails religiously.
Mhm.
Um, but if you want to do like social media, follow me on Instagram. I do post a lot about my MD PhD journey on there. So that is just BLU, the number 3 underscore DVL 19,
Okay.
Blue Devil 19, but in a fancy way, right? Follow me on Instagram. I do post about the medical school process. I do plan on posting about when I get to Utah, my adjustment, all of that. I really want to help out, especially if there's anyone listening that is thinking about applying to medical school, applying to MD, PhD programs. Reach out. I'm definitely open to talking about my experience, and I have I think I had a pretty successful cycle. I will be going somewhere, but there's things I wish I would have known before I applied. So if anyone has questions, email, Instagram, either one of those is perfect.
Love it. So you guys, if you guys want to reach out to Paris, please use all of her social media handles. If you're going, I would suggest that you reach out to her on her social media handles first before you decide to email her. Please don't email stalker. Please, let's just not do it. Okay. Um, okay, so one last question. And it is, if you were to go travel back through time, if you were to just travel back through time and talk to your younger self, if you could do that, what advice would you give her and why?
Yeah, there's so much I would want to say to her, but if I had to boil it down to one tidbit of advice that I know she would listen to, because I was stubborn as a kid, so I have to think about that. But if I had to boil it down to something that I know she would listen to, I would just say try things. Just try everything, because I I think I went along my path, and I'm very fortunate to have chosen something that fits for me, but I can tend to have tunnel vision at times. Like I mentioned before, I had tunnel vision going into college. So, don't get tied down to a particular field, don't get tied down to an idea, don't get tied down to a thought or a feeling. Like breathe and try different things, because you never know. You could come across, like I said before, I thought I wanted to be an author and I really didn't. But you could come across a new field, a new person, a new idea. Just try, because I was really stuck kind of in my ways as a kid. And I say as a kid, I also mean as an adolescent, but just trying things, being more open-minded, I think would have benefited me when I was younger.
Wow. I love that. And I think there are so many young people. Hopefully, they will listen to this episode. Heck, there's so many older people who are stuck in their ways and just don't want to try anything new. And there's so much joy in it. And usually there's no harm in trying something new. And usually when they do, it's just like, oh, why didn't I, like why didn't I? Is usually like the the result at the end. So I really am I'm really grateful and thankful that you said yes today. I've learned so much from you, and please know that again, people are rooting for you. I'm in awe. I really am.
Thank
Um,
you so much. Thank you for having me. I had a lot of fun. I love this idea. I love this whole concept of just bringing people on the show and talking about the reality of things and talking about people's stories and encouragement. If I had known this existed when I was like in middle school trying to figure out what I was doing, it would have helped so much. So I'm really happy to be here. I'm glad that I was able to help.
Oh, well, and here you are. So if you are if you are ever in need, hey, listen to your own episode for one, because you are an inspiration. I promise you. And two, give it to a friend and give it to another friend and give it to a friend. I just again am in awe and I'm just Yes. Yes, ma'am. All right, you guys. So this concludes today's episode of Stimming in Stilettos. And as I end every single episode, you guys keep yourselves safe.